start increasing the circulation of money, this would double. If I double this, double the papers, I printed 2 of these pieces of paper, this will be £2. Triple it, it'll be £3. It won't, it's not that's getting more expensive, it's just that's losing more value, that's just dropping in value. So I need more of those to get one of those. That's all it is. And they try to sort of like balance that, you know, like walking on a you know, like a tightrope, and you're trying to balance the two until things go completely wrong, like we experienced in 2008. Like I said, the whole global economic collapse is debt chain because the whole world is connected together through one currency. One currency is like pegging the whole thing. So one banking system falls, it starts triggering a ripple effect, and that's what you start seeing in the economical debt crisis that's happening. We haven't actually been in this before in history. We haven't never been into a situation where you've got inflation and you've got recession. There's people losing jobs, so they can't afford to pay anymore for goods, and at the same time the prices of goods are increasing, and that's called stagnation. That's something, and the way the system is set up, now you'll be thinking, what's the point? Have you ever thought of this? I mean, why make paper? What's the whole thing? Why don't they just stop it? Thomas Jefferson stopped at one point. He said, no, we're not going to have this. We are the government, we print our own currency. And then eventually went. And then you got John F. Kennedy, he tried to do the same thing, he ended up dead. We're not having it. No one's going to change the system that we set. But the system is set up to feed the elite. You've got people at the top taking the whole thing. In the past it wasn't like that. In the past it was an equal distribution of wealth. It was only limited to the amount of gold and real assets the country has. Every time someone attempts that, they go.
So how does it work having the Scottish pound and the normal sterling? You know, sometimes you go around, you see some notes that are circulated within Scotland,
Yeah.
and some other sterling different from what you have in India.
Yeah. You have 5 private banks, and they have the right to print their own money. They have the right to print their own money. The only thing is, they can only print based on what the government tells them. So the government says, right, this is the fractional reserve requirement is 20-1 this year, for example. That means they can, if you deposit £20, they can only loan out to the public in numbers 20 times that number. They can't go beyond that. Sometimes they do it. If they get caught, they're in trouble. And sometimes the government lets it loose and says, right, okay, some countries they say, right, let's do it 100-1, let's do it 1,000-1, because we've got to stimulate the economy. So they give them that right. But if everyone goes to the bank and says, right, give us even this pieces of paper, they're not going to have the pieces of paper. They're going to have 1% of that piece of paper in default. The rest of it is a number. So they're not going to have it. And that's what really happens is the people at the top who will have the right to print this money, which has no value at all, they're taking the real assets. So you've got the real assets in Africa, and they would give you some money. Say you need some development loan or something. We'll give you the money. In exchange, you give us your goods, real fruits, real gold, real silver, real oil, real gas. So they take the real stuff like that, and that's when you've got 50,000 people approximately every day dying. That shouldn't be the case. That shouldn't be at all. At one point, it was Africa that people were walking around in silk, and they were kings. And everywhere else in the world, they were in the dark ages. They were like struggling because they had the real assets. God gifted, these lands, the African whatever, with natural resources. People could just live off their land and don't need to worry. So that's what happened, So the whole idea is to flip that around. If you have like 1% of the world resources feeding the whole world, that would be fantastic. It's a dream. The solution is lessons from history. Yes, in history there were people using gold and silver, using real resources. What happened? Unemployment was very low. Yes, we didn't have computers at the time, But everyone, pretty much, the majority of the population were in employment. There was a point, I'm going to go into Islamic history. For example, there was this leader named Omar Abdul Aziz. I'm not sure how many years after the Prophet, 300, 400 years after. Now what he did, he reached a situation whereby they were only collecting 2.5% on people's savings, and they were trying to circulate it to people like as benefits, you know, like, they couldn't give it to anyone. So they told the guy, look, take this money and give it to Europe, give it to France. There's poor people in France. There's no poor people here at all. So they used to send it abroad, outside their borders, voluntarily, not as a loan, as a donation. Yeah, take this money, we don't need it. Because everyone is self-sufficient. No one needed the money. So there was that point. What happened to him? Straight away he got assassinated. A year later he got assassinated. Why? Because there's always naturally mankind is greedy. You have people that say, that's not fair. You know, if we had all this money, we can enjoy luxury. So instead of everyone living at a good level, everyone satisfied in life, there were people that were greedy. So they said, right, okay, we'll get rid of him, we'll become in power, we'll become a king, and we'll inherit, you know, we'll give, you know, other people, our family and our generation will inherit this, and we will enjoy that wealth. And then we can tax people more money, we can start doing that, and that's when poverty started coming in. There's always a group of people that always conspire to do this. But in history, anyone that's ever applied real money always had a success. It's the most stable kind of currency. What I'm proposing is the gold and silver. That's the solution. I don't want to just talk about problems, I want to talk about solutions. If we compare like for like here, there's dinar and dirham. Dinar is actually a word that came from the Roman denarius or something like that. And then it was adopted later on. It has an exact value. It has every dinar is 4.25 grams of gold, which is about 91.6, which is about approximately 150 pounds on today's price. The dirham is 3 grams of silver, which is 99%, approximately valued at 5. Now, 1 dirham, 1,500 years ago, was approximately, you could buy 1 chicken. So every 1 dirham used to actually buy a chicken at that time. Today's price of chicken from Asda is £3.58. If I had 1 dirham, which gets you 1 chicken, I'm sure I could get slightly bigger chicken than that, or maybe I can be very selective, but I can still afford the chicken. You can't say that the same for the dollar or the sterling, can you? Always the prices are going up. If a few years ago the chicken was £1, I remember I used to get it for £1 one time. Now it's £3.58. Isn't the chicken going up? The price is just the money losing value. So that retains its value. The silver coin retains its value. Even after 1,500 years, it still has that value retained. My project that I'm working on, which you can ask questions about, it's a commodity exchange. But the way I'm doing it, without actually going into too much detail about it, I'm trying to get people to adopt the standard of gold and silver. So every commodity that's being traded has a value in silver and gold. So people would need to start like converting at the current rates of the spot price of gold and silver, and then make the transaction if they wanted to. So there's that part. There's something called the futures market. This is the current commodity exchange, the way it works. Who knows about the futures market? Who's heard about it in the news, that kind of stuff? What is the futures market? It gives it away. It's a forward contract. So basically, you're a farmer, and I'm the buyer, basically. I'd agree with you, next year I'll buy 10 tons of rice from you, for example. But how do you know that you're going to get, your land's going to produce that much? You don't know. There might be a flood. You have to commit to that contract. Then you've got people in the middle that speculate on those contracts. They have no intention towards buying the rice, but they purely buy that contract to sell it for a higher price. Now you're going to be in trouble if you can't provide it. Someone has to provide that rice. There isn't enough. So that's the problem with the futures market. You are just basically entering into a contract on products that don't really exist yet. So I believe that's really unethical. The people that trade in it, they only make money when, like I was saying earlier, when someone loses money. Someone's at someone else's disadvantage. Something has to go wrong for me to make money. I've got a contract to buy potatoes at £1. The potatoes are very scarce, prices of potatoes are going up, but you have to fulfill that contract. You have to still supply me potatoes at £1. I don't care how many potatoes, I don't care the situation in the market, you're going to supply me that. Even if it's at your loss, even if you have to do whatever it takes to bring those potatoes, you've got to do it. So people speculate on these contracts purely for their own benefit, not for someone else. That's not the case in this commodity exchange. It's based on spot price. I've got 100,000 tons, I can only sell 100,000 tons at the current rate, the spot value of the asset. Buyers can opt to actually invest in the commodities on the actual thing. So there's the physical thing. We're not actually selling it on, we're holding it. But like I said, like gold and silver and other commodities, they have an intrinsic value, it has a value. It holds a value, it doesn't float. So they can hold it, they can sell it on to other people. So someone can actually buy and they pay a small fee for storage in a warehouse, and then that could be sold on the exchange to someone else. They can buy to sell as long as it's physically there. But if they ever say, right, give us the goods are here, take it, we'll deliver it straight away. You don't have to pay a small storage fee. And of course, I can't ban the legal tenders. So while this is a legal tender, I have to accept it. Otherwise, I'll be in trouble. If I reject this money, I'll go to prison. I read somewhere you get about 31 years in prison or something for rejecting this as a legal tender. If I have a shop and people come in and they say, here's the money, and I say, no, I'm not going to take that money, I'm going to take gold and silver, I'm going to be in trouble. Because that's the law. That's the law I've got. So I have to accept that. So if they want to exchange the commodities, there's the value of the commodities today, it's £20, here's £20, so they can take that in this legal tender as well. The technology that I'm going to adopt is I'm trying to build this application, which anyone's more than welcome to get involved. You know, I'm building an engine and it can be expanded if you like the idea. It's going to be across platforms. It's going to be on the mobile. It's going to